China become a kind of a manufacturing center in certain products. China will buy spare parts, raw materials, even, I think, later on, moving its some of the manufacturing sectors or manufacturing links to the developing countries. Those become a kind of chain of production. So China, once become the kind of so-called manufacturing center of the world, it can create a very large network cooperating the developing world into that network, and let the developing world become the kind of spare parts and component part suppliers. And sometimes they become a kind of assembly lines there. So I think when the world has become so globalized, some of the major developing countries like China, India, and Brazil, once become a very important economies, it will certainly benefit its neighbors and benefit its developing friends. As far as China is concerned, we are trying to do some more FTAs with more developing countries, because we think that we can share, we can enable them to share the kind of benefit we have already achieved from this free and fair trade of the world. I think it's a good thing for some of the major developing countries become more and more internationalized and much stronger economically. So I firmly believe that Doha round would be a success. And when we negotiate with the United States in China's WTO accession, we always lose our hope because we see that the US resistance was insurmountable. But gradually, the United States also realized that when they see China become member of WTO, it will benefit the United States themselves. And American enterprises play a very important role in the promotion of China's accession to WTO because they see real benefit for free trade. So I believe that with the pressure from the business communities in the United States, and also when more and more US politicians and Congress people understand the essence of Doha, eventually the American government will support Doha process. And I believe that they will do so. That is why I think we should never lose hope for the Doha. If we lose Doha round, it will very heavily damage the kind of image of free trade. It will damage the kind of prestige of WTO, which is in nobody's interest. So we should really get Doha successful in order to protect the kind of global trading system and the kind of global system with WTO in its center. I think that's in every country's interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Long. Too, I would like to all take a moment to thank Mr. Long for having allowed us to steal him from his busy schedule to come in and join us today. Thank you very much for that. What we will do is to continue very briefly with just a few more questions for the panel. And so I will open the floor up again very quickly. We have a question at the back of the room. Is there a mic at the back of the room in the center? Could you raise your hand again, please? Please keep your questions short and to the point because we are over schedule and we can't do this for very much longer. Introduce yourself and ask the question. If you have a specific panelist you would like to direct the question to, please kindly do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Catherine again from Kenya.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you up here on the panel. Could you?
My name is Catherine from Kenya. And my question goes to John of Mexico. He talked about sustainable development, and we know one of the key issues today for sustainable development is export rent growth. in environmental sustainability. And we heard from most of them, from most of the panelists today, that for export, for sustainability in export, we also need to have environmental sustainability. And based on John's model of Mexico tourism, I would like to know how we can balance these issues, the two issues of environmental sustainability and export growth sustainability in the developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John, please.
Yes, very good question, and very much one I'm very conscious of, because I deal with environmental issues every time we create a new development. Mexico, like many of the countries present here, continues to have a lot of poverty, in spite of the fact that it's considered now a fairly wealthy country. I guess like China, when you think of environmental or sustainable tourism, you got to take into consideration A, the social environment. What does tourism do for the people of Mexico? B, what does tourism do for culture, which is the triangle I couldn't explain there? And C, how do you deal with the environment? You have to have a perfect balance, and every time you build something, you will affect the environment, but you must take measures to compensate somewhere else. That is very sort of simply put. Obviously, if you want to talk about it a bit more, we can spend some more time, but I know we're tight for time.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the representative from Kenya who asked the question. We can take 2 or 3 more questions at most. Again, very, very quick. Any more particular questions? I don't see any. Well, we're lucky. Let me say, because we do need to stay on schedule very quickly, I would like to give just 2 minutes, please, only 2 minutes for our panelists, if you have any further comments on what has been asked or what we've done today, but we have to really stay within 2 minutes maximum. Secretary Hussein, I'll start with you.
I think there was a question directed to me regarding the LDC's dilemma to go for agreements and something like that from Malawi, right, if I'm not wrong in understanding him. I think from LDC's point of view, 2 major considerations are here. First of all, of course, the political governments are taking into consideration of short-term implications. I mean, when an import substitution regime is there, the economy is restricted, obviously, and there are higher import revenues in the short run. So they don't assess the fruits of the export-led growth strategy momentarily. Normally, these governments are for 3 to 5 years. This happens. And another, I would say, criticism of the export-led growth model is that it does not encourage mass diversification of the products and also markets. So this does not encourage the LDCs to adapt to this kind of strategy. And if market is open, I think the situation could have been different. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Yang, do you have any? Okay. Thank you very much. Greg? No particular comments. I think we've heard a variety of different views today, and I think what's very important is it seems to be that we're seeing a kind of a synthesis from what we've heard in the other sessions. We are looking, obviously, it's very good to know that the export-led growth model continues, but it's very clear that it has to be tied to what's going on at home, and each country has a different situation. I think what we heard from John was particularly important is that a lot of countries think that to make the jump into doing something value-added in terms of exports requires high investment. There are high barriers to entry in certain sectors, but when we look at tourism as an example of a service sector, it's not the only one, but it's an example, there may be areas where countries are endowed with investments that they haven't quite considered, and they can take advantage of that. I think Greg made 3 important points about what's going on as we look at the transformation of trade looking forward and the sustainability of that as an export-led growth model, and specifically the relationship between the US and China.